everything is about to hit here, and he's just been back and forth. And no, we haven't changed to 5 p.m., but I'm going to let you all know about some changes that I'm going to make about this show. So I'm going to have to really tighten things up because really, everybody, I I spend a tremendous amount of time, and I love you, love you, love you, love you, but I really am doing the job of about 5 people, 5 or 6 people every day, and I just don't have the bandwidth, and I'm ignoring a national project, a national radio show, or should I say, I'm not giving it the time that I need to give it. And particularly as we're trying to spend, I've been delaying spinning it off into a podcast. I mean, we've got Michael Jackson, we've got the president of Mexico, we've got Obama, we've got Biden. We have a lot of shows that we can reflect upon and that we can talk about in today, and I'm going to really have to focus my attention on that and getting some other interviews, and that takes a lot of time. Even getting in touch with Attorney O'Neill and Attorney Jones, they're busy, and if I can't get them for very specific reasons, I have to pivot very quickly. Because I try to bring people who are expert and who offer you opinions, and well, not just opinions, really offer you perspectives that are informed. So I'll be talking about it in the next week or so, to let you know what my plans are for 2026, because things are going to change a good deal. But know that I love you and I'm always going to be with you. Always, always. It's just going to be a little bit more focused. So we're going to be up in 10 seconds, everybody. We're up in five, four. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. We are a month in, 1 month into the government shutdown, and now things are going to get very real for people. We've been looking at healthcare because now you're going to see a real difference in how much your healthcare is going to cost because the exchanges open up. The registration starts this weekend, and people are not going to have their food benefits. And so let me encourage you to go to churches, to reach out to organizations. There is no shame in needing some help. There are a lot of people who work every day. In fact, most people who get SNAP benefits and WIC benefits and benefits, they work every day. In my grandmother's time, because my grandmother, my father's mother used to fill out people's papers. It was called relief. See, coming out of the Great Depression, people got relief, and somehow or another, the oligarchs have turned it around to make it look as if you are just trying to sponge off the system when they, in fact, became very wealthy off of the system. Remember, Elon Musk makes $8 million a day off of government contracts, and that's just one stream of income. Think about that. They changed the language to call it entitlements. I want you to think about that. And please be careful as we walk around here because a lot of people are very desperate. And I'm not going to blame them. It's very painful to see. Can you imagine hunger? Just being hungry for a little bit will make you irritated. But to move into starvation moves people into desperation. So think about that. And we have got that and looming elections in 2025, not just in 2026. What will happen with the presence of ICE? There's a New York County executive, Nassau County, which is just outside of New York City, who has said, I think his name is, yes, it is Bruce Blakeman. He said that he is going to empower 10 police detectives to become ICE agents. And he plans to increase the ICE police presence in Nassau County if Mamdani wins. And that's a response to people and their yearnings. Because we not only have Mamdani in New York, we have Senator Omar Fateh in Minneapolis. No one wants to talk about that because maybe they don't want you to see that a lot of people feel similarly about the system. So I want you to think about that, everybody, and let's continue to be prayerful, but you need to be active. I don't care who you voted for. Whoever you might not have who you want, but that's who you need because they occupy a seat that you're paying for. You need to let them know that they need to free up these funds for our food. You need to call the Department of Agriculture and let them know that we need relief. There's a contingency fund. In fact, there are two of them. One is $9 billion. It's been underfunded, $5 to $6 billion. It should have $9 billion in it. There's another fund that's more than $20 billion. The money is there. It's just not getting to us. If you're going to cut a check immediately to Argentina because you like that regime, and then another $20 million and a billion, really? And you can't come up with $9 billion to feed Americans? And some of this foreign aid has not stopped. They're getting their money, but Americans are not getting their money. I want you to think about that. And more than that, I want you to get registered and vote. And let's talk about that, which leads us to what we're talking about today. Because I was listening to this tremendous historian. I know you, Attorney Terry O'Neill, President Emeritus of the National Organization of Women, and you, the Chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Darrell Jones. Of course, you host your own radio show every Tuesday at 12 noon on WOL in DC. Heather Cox Richardson, she's a brilliant historian. And I was not aware, or should I say, it just really escaped my attention, that there are more than 52,000 races that are going to occur in the next couple of weeks. 52,000 all across the country. You've got judges, you've got county executives, you've got mayors. I mean, you've got elections everywhere. Can you imagine 52,000 races? There is something you can do. There is something you can do. You've got to get involved. And we have to get out in March. We have to let people know exactly how we're feeling. But you need to carry your ID. Because guess what happened last Saturday in Chicago? We take our Halloween seriously. We're all over the country. It's a fun holiday for many people. Well, tear gas was dispensed while these children were trying to have their costume parade and get their candy. Tear gas. And so a federal judge here has said, wait a minute, what you need to do is you're going too far. Your force, your use of force is excessive. So what I want you to do is check in with me every single day and let me know what you are doing. Well, this judge was overruled. And that's not really surprising because the court system tends to favor the police. They give them wide discretion. That's why you have consent decrees, because it helps us help them help us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we need to talk about this because in this election season, you now have people who are carrying around their passport cards or real ID. You have Americans just on color, who are being pulled over by ICE. And it's encouraged some police to become even more aggressive, just police. And you can see in Nassau County in New York that now they're cross-pollinating police with ICE. I'm wondering if they get two paychecks. I gotta think about that. I need to do some digging. But yeah, I mean, they've gotten cross designations as called. So think about that. So we are in a police state. We're not moving into it. And you are being heavily monitored in social media. We're being heavily monitored here. If you have a progressive stance, you're going to get shut down on Facebook and on Instagram. I hope it doesn't happen to Blue Sky, but this is where we are. So let's talk about this, particularly in this election season, because Attorney Darrell Jones, you have been out really talking with these young people because they really, really want to be involved. And wait a minute, it's not just young people. People want to be involved. They said there were 7 million people at the No Kings rallies and marches. Mm-hmm. If they said 7 million, I'd double it because I saw people everywhere. And they were in places that you did not expect them to be. In little towns, several hundred people were gathering. And I think, given how we are monitored, that is unsettling to the oligarchs who are really running everything. because we let them. Think about that. When you push back and exercise your power responsibly, we really make America what it's supposed to be. So I want you to talk to us as we look at these 52,000 races. I mean, Attorney O'Neill, Attorney Jones. I mean, it was because I follow Heather Cox Richardson. I said, wait a minute, 52,000 races. And it kept me up all night long trying to chase that down. And I said, oh my goodness, she is right. When you just start looking at the races everywhere, yeah, between now and the end of the year. And then you're going to move into 2026, Attorney Jones. I mean, we're in the election season right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how people are going to feel about going to vote when they don't feel that they have rite of passage in their neighborhoods. Because that's where you vote. I mean, Attorney Jones.
Yeah, no, Santita, you're right on it. And, one of the things that, I have been trying to, and TJC has been trying to raise the alarm on, is saying that when you start putting these federal officers and these ICE officers into the streets and the National Guard into the streets, one of the things that we know is that police officers themselves are intimidating to some voters. So if you add into that a layer of ICE, you add in that a layer of National Guard all in the street, you start getting concerned. It's horrible. It's like one of the worst forms of voter suppression is to have ICE agents in the streets, ICE agents around the polls, and intimidating voters as to whether or not they want to go in and vote. Will they be followed home? Will they? We have the Perdomo case that came out from the Supreme Court that said they can stop anyone that looks Latino, anyone that's speaking Spanish or if they are gathered or coming from a work van, because they said based on where you work, they can stop you, they can question you, they can hold you for some period of time. We don't know what that period of time is. So if you're going to vote and you are of Latino or a Spanish speaking person, you're concerned about seeing the ICE out there. All of these things are voter suppression techniques that are being put in place. And when you start rolling that out across the country, let's also understand they're specifically going to these Democratic or blue areas, cities, whatever, where they're concentrating this effort. So that's the vote that they want to suppress, to make it more difficult, to make them ask the question, do you really want to go through this? And if you are a voter and you've got to ask that question to yourself, do I really want to go through this? Most elections are decided by small percentages. And so if they can suppress a small percentage, it can have an overwhelming impact on an election season. So, 2025, what we're going through right now, I tell you, my prediction is 2025 is a dry run for what you're going to see in 2026. Because once they see the success and what can happen when they're trying to suppress in 2025, look for them to open up the playbook fully for 2026 so they can try to have not have any guardrails on the presidency and influence what's happening across the country.
Well, and the thing is, if you look at this panel right here, anyone could be a Latino, anybody here, because they go from Latino is it's a culture, it's not a color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not. It's the Spanish were here first, colonizing, and that's these are indigenous people who speak Spanish. Like I'm not English. I speak English because that's the language of the conqueror.
Mm-hmm.
But these are not Spaniards. These are indigenous people who speak Spanish. I think we need to be real clear on that. So that's the look that they're looking for. Because Spaniards, my sister-in-law is a Spaniard. She is from Spain, and she is European.
Mm-hmm.
That is not who's here. And that is not, but you know what they are beginning to go after? White people who are protesting.
Mm-hmm.
They are being forced to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Attorney Jones, Attorney O'Neill. So I don't see them stopping at so-called Democratic leaning
Mm-hmm.
districts, because America is much more fluid than that now. The plurality of us are independent. We float now. I think that if they see any hint, Attorney O'Neill, let me shift it to you. Any space where people might be upset about this food, you're going to be in the crosshairs. They're going to watch you, right? And I think we need to be vigilant about the weaponization. I mean, the weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI is not new. Come on,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, we tried to ring that bell with Dr. King, and with those of us the dissenters, and it didn't start with him. That's what we've been doing, right? And people did not listen, and now here we are. It's a cancer, Attorney O'Neill. It is spread, and you kept saying, Attorney O'Neill, you kept saying, wait a minute, the elections, they're going to go after these elections. And you've been sounding the alarm for a long time. What are you seeing as we watch ICE? Very quietly, they're everywhere. Oh, wait a minute, you're on mute. That's okay. It's all right. The
Yeah.
most brilliant things are said while we're muted. It's okay.
The most common phrase in America since 2020 has been, "You're on mute."
It's all right.
Yeah. I mean, I live in Tennessee, where the fascist takeover of the government and all many layers of government, levels of government, is pretty well complete. It's much farther advanced than in a state like Illinois, or the New England states or the West Coast states.
I need you to explain that before you go any further. What does that mean?
So Tennessee has a supermajority of extreme conservatives in the state legislature. They literally threw out 3 legislators: Justin Pearson of Memphis, Justin Jones of Nashville, and Gloria Johnson of Knoxville. I believe she's Knoxville, East Tennessee. Because during a debate on gun safety regulation, their microphones were turned off. And then there was a pause in the proceedings. And during the pause in the proceedings, those 3 went to the well of the floor of the House and used a megaphone to begin making their point. They were entitled to speak, but the Speaker of the House simply turned off their microphones, didn't like what they were hearing, and people in the gallery did like what they were hearing, so their microphones were turned off. So they used a megaphone. It was ordered that the megaphone was a breach of protocol or civility or something like that. And they actually expelled both Justin Pearson and Justin Jones. They did not expel Gloria Johnson. She avoided expulsion by 1 vote.
And because she is also white.
She's white. The other 2 are black. Exactly.
But she did too. But we have to give her credit for standing with her colleagues. Now, she did do that. I mean, it's not her fault that they racialized that vote. No,
they racialized the vote, and she complained about it. She didn't complain about the out, but she was asked, she was interviewed about it. And why do you think you won? She said, well, look at my skin color. Why do you think I didn't get expelled? I mean, she was very clear about it all along. I'm just saying that happened 2 years ago. Since that time, the supermajority and the extreme conservative Governor Bill Lee have imposed school vouchers. They are embarking on this privatization, this scheme to privatize all of public education. It will take a long time. They're doing it through school vouchers. It's kind of complicated, but the ultimate goal for these people is to take taxpayer dollars and give it to quote unquote private schools, most of which, by the way, are white Christian schools. Okay, so when I say fascist takeover, I mean that you are privatizing a lot of things in Tennessee. Oh, and by the way, that gun regulation never passed. There was a big push to get gun regulation passed in Tennessee after a very wealthy, very conservative private school experienced a mass shooting with a number of children and adults murdered in this mass shooting in Nashville, upscale, very conservative. The moms from that school, the Covenant School moms, went to the legislature and said, we really need some common sense gun regulation. And the men were like, nope, not going to do it. And so
why?
Because the conservatives, they began taking over the state in 2012. Remember the year 2020? No, in 2010. Sorry, what's the year 2010? Well, that's 2 years after we elected Barack Obama, a black man president. And in Tennessee, the fierce white racist reaction to that was strong. So they start taking over the legislature in 2010, 2012, and so forth. In that time period as well, gun manufacturers have relocated to Tennessee. And because of Citizens United, they pay lots of money, both for lobbying and for PAC support for candidates that they know will not allow any gun safety regulation to be passed in Tennessee. It's the same with Core Civic, previously called the Corrections Corporation of America, which has endured scandal after scandal after scandal of brutal behavior, brutal tactics used on prisoners. They now are headquartered in Tennessee. They spend millions of dollars in lobbying and in PAC contributions to get the state legislators that they want. So when I say fascist, what I mean is there's like no daylight between the corporate interests and politicians.
But you know what? I wanted you to explain that before as you continue,
Yeah.
because we're using these terms, and it's like we don't really know what a socialist is. We don't even know what a capitalist is. We really don't. We don't know what a patriot is. We do not. I mean, anytime Teddy Roosevelt says that really about the highest expression of patriotism is dissent, we really do not understand patriotism. We don't.
Right.
So that's why I was asking you about fascism, because I think that if we understand that working definition of it,
Yes,
no daylight between the corporate state and our government state,
yes.
when they have merged, when they are one, then this begins to make sense for us. Then Bernie Sanders and his tour makes sense to you. Then AOC, then Mamdani, then Fateh. When these people, when they start saying, "Wait a minute," there's corporate overreach. And so that's when you look at Andrew Cuomo, and it makes me sad for the legacy that his father has had. I mean, and not that, Mario Cuomo was some raging progressive, but he did give voice to certain aspirations. And so to see him where he is now is like, oh my goodness. I mean, all in the name of these corporate donors who have just overtaken, the corporations who have they've overtaken our government.
Yeah, 100%. And the first step in doing that, of course, was to get a supermajority in the state legislature and a governor, who really can't be challenged. And when I say fascism, I'm talking about the Italian version of fascism, when Mussolini did not consider fascism to be a bad thing. He thought it was a good thing. It was his world. He was proud of it. And what he was proud of is that the government existed to support the wealthiest industrialists in Italy. And the industrialists existed to keep military control on the rest of the population. That's really no daylight. And the whole purpose of existence is it's kind of a feudalistic kind of view.
But feudalism comes feudalistic wages, right?
Yeah, or not wages. Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm just saying, I want everybody, I mean, because you've been making this case. You've been going, wait a minute, you guys, this is where we are. And no, because I think that, Daryl, it's time I'm not trying to stop you, Terry. I want you to help people I want you to explain this so that we can really understand.
Yeah.
So when I just got into this big back and forth with PayPal because my account was hit, trying to pay them their money. Ultimately what they wanted was to go into my bank account. Well, if you tie your bank account no, I'm not going to do that. I closed that account, and I'm not letting you put your little paws on my money anymore. In fact, I don't want to fool with you. But there's some things that if I need to get something, I've got to go with you, because if I carry cash, they look at me like I am a thief.
Right.
I mean, they've outlawed cash for me,
right,
but not for thee.
Yeah.
Because these people, all they do is print money. That's all they do. So help me, because when you look at the corporations, they control everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, that they certainly want to, and they pay a lot of millions and millions of dollars to control everything. And I want to bring it back to voting. What Daryl was talking about is that so here in Tennessee, where honestly we are very much in the throes of kind of an authoritarian way of living, if you will. Um, there are so the local Nashville police, because of the Metro City Council rules, the police are not allowed to cooperate with ICE, but there are many state highways running right through the city, and the state highway patrol is allowed to cooperate with ICE. So the kind of intimidation that Daryl is talking about is absolutely taking place all around Nashville, all throughout Nashville, and that itself is going to depress the vote.
Is Tennessee a red state?
Sorry?
Is Tennessee a red state?
Oh, yes, it is deep, deep, deep. Well, let me say, the polling shows that Tennessee is a purple state in terms of people's policy preferences. There's strong support for gun control. There is strong support for women's reproductive health care and access to the full range of reproductive health care, including abortion. There is strong support for a number of progressive policies, but there is zero legislative ability to give that to the people. So it is red in terms of its governance. It is purple in terms of the people's preferences.
Well, Solomon, I hear you. You say I have to advance the conversation past Elon and Peter. I have. I've mentioned them. They are symbols. They're even front people for people who run everything. Most of you don't even know who Alex Karp is.
Right.
And they've done major profiles on him. Do you know who he is? Do you know his background? Have you heard him speak? He is anti-DEI except for young Jewish employees of Palantir. I mean, and he's black. I mean, yeah, there are a whole lot of people out here. Most of the people who run the world, you don't even know their names. You don't see their faces. We already have trillionaires. Already. But you don't hear. You think they always tell you publicly that the royal family of England, that they're just worth, $500 billion. That is not true. They're the only people on earth, not the crown, but Queen Elizabeth and now her son are the only people on earth who are allowed to own whole countries. That's the whole point of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is for them. Yeah. They own everything. They own a whole lot. They own whole countries, y'all. And when they own countries, that means they own the water rights. You can live in London. London's one of my favorite cities on earth. And you know what, Daryl and Terry? When you go there, you can get a fabulous place, but you just can't own the land.
Yeah, that's right. Get a 99-year lease or something.
Yeah.
When you buy a house.
So if you strike oil on your patch of grass in the back or on your estate, guess what? It belongs to the Queen.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So that's why, when I look at the former colonies who are still in the Commonwealth, I'm like, are you really free? Really? I don't think so. No. Because there were like 5 or 6 countries in the Commonwealth when Queen Elizabeth's father died. That has multiplied by about a factor of 10. And 94% of those countries are Indian and they are African. That's how they get their money. So you need to know that. So talk about advancing the billionaires. You need to advance the discussion, Solomon, because it's not about billionaires. It's about trillionaires, people who really run things, and you don't know their names because they're protected. Whenever they put people out front, just know they're not the one. Know that. And know, as George Carlin said, there is a club and you ain't in it. So let's stay right there. Let's talk about these 52,000 races that are going to happen over the next couple of weeks and how people are going to be able to go vote, Daryl. I mean, what are people to do? Because I was reading, getting ready for this show and listening to people, going on TikTok and just really trying to do my due diligence, right? People, some young people in these families who are American citizens, they're saying, well, my parents are not going to go out, so I'm going to take my little brother to the soccer game. Mm-hmm. But I have his passport card. I have a copy of his passport. I have a copy of his birth certificate. I have a copy of mine. I have all of this is changing how we live. People are not going to school. And if they're not going to the school, many people might be sick. They're not going to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is like, help me, you all, because this is, I mean, but when we're looking at the vote at a time now, people are being, as people are really, when their backs are against the wall and they want some relief. It's ironic, Daryl and Terry, at this time, but first you, Daryl, that now people are, many are afraid to go vote. If you have a record, I mean, it might not be an immigration issue,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you know.
And Santita, it has always and traditionally been the case that people with, we'll call it an F on your report card, right, a felony on your record, you may not believe that you have the right to vote anyway, right, because there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation that's out there. If you and now add to that this layer of having police presence at the polls,
Yes.
right, and if you're on probation or anything like that, you then have that layer of concern that's being laid out there. When you were talking about people going to the polls, and particularly those that are Latin American or in their origin, Latin in their origin, going to the polls and the concerns that they're facing, just going to soccer practice, right? Taking their documentation with them, having someone who is a naturalized citizen going to do their food shopping because everyone else is afraid to go out. There's another layer that's there too that people don't think about, and that is this. There are people that are the victims of crimes that will not report the crimes because they're afraid not only for themselves, but what it could mean for the rest of their family to have the police presence come into that into that avenue, into that world. So you have all of this that's going on, and then you've got to ask the question at that point in time, when you have all of these real things that could happen to you, are you willing to go out and now try to cast a ballot? Are you willing to go and stand in a line and there may be ICE there? Are you willing to go to an election, go to a city or a county to do an election, and the municipality has already deputized some of the police officers to act as ICE agents? So, you have all of this that's going on that's creating this intimidation at the polls, trying to suppress folks from going out. They don't want you to go out.
Well, wait a minute, Derek. Hold on. I want you to amplify that, because when I brought to you that information about what's happening in Nassau County, just as Nassau County, just outside of New York City, on Long Island, is that what the intimidation? I mean, you basically co-designate 10 police detectives, so they're not walking the beat. They are senior police officers. What does that mean?
Yeah, it means that, what they do is they're deputizing people to go out and do the dirty work, right? To go out and do the policing, to go out, they're empowering them to be extra enforcers. Well, extra enforcers, that doesn't sound bad, right? It doesn't sound bad until you start drilling down on it and understanding what it is that they want to extra enforce, right? And if what we're looking at is them stopping certain people and wanting to intimidate certain people from going to the polls, that becomes a major problem on the voting rights spectrum, because now you're interfering with people's ability to just go and vote. What that would also mean practically is that if an ICE agent can stop anybody for any reason because they think that they may not, they speak Spanish, they look like they might speak Spanish, they're wearing their clothing that is from a labor-intensive industry. All these are now reasons that they can actually stop people and question them. All right. If they're doing that, and now you're expanding the number of people that can do it, you're expanding the number of officers that you're given the power to do this, then you are further intimidating folks from saying, I want to go out and try to do this. I don't just have to be worried about the ICE agents and the what is it, the $700 million, whatever it is that they've just gotten from the federal government, but I've got to be worried about the ICE agents and everyone that now has been deputized to also hold that same ability to do that same thing. That's where it becomes even more intimidating, and that's what this is all after. Is to intimidate people so they don't want to go and cast the ballot. It's no different. Let me take you back an election cycle or two. We remember seeing in Virginia and some places in Georgia, folks that were standing by a polling site that had rifles, that had guns. And the idea there was to intimidate folks from coming to vote. This is the same thing, only in a broader scale. And in my perspective, more directed as to who they're trying to stop and suppress from going to vote. That's the issue that's there. That's the problem that Nassau County presents, to the, for the most part, to the non-white, non-progressive voter. If you're a progressive or a voter of color there, you're going to be intimidated by the tactics because they want to intimidate you with the tactics. And that's what the concern is, Santita. That's the problem that's being created. And the administration that wants to keep things in place and stay in place, they're going to do whatever they can so that people that are more likely than not inclined to vote against them do not get the chance to vote. And it doesn't stop there, because I've been saying it, and I'll say it, and I'll say it again. It runs right up to the Supreme Court. It runs right up to the decision that was just argued when they're going to try to do all this redistricting stuff to remove those black districts from being there and to crack them and stack them so that you don't have as many black representatives. Your voting power is going to be less. All of this is intertwined. It's all, intersected with the complete purpose of trying to be certain that the voters of color do not have the voting power that they now currently have. That's what this is about, protecting and building on your oligarchy argument that you've been presenting.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to look at what we're seeing here, because oh boy, at a moment like this, I miss Dwight McKee more than ever.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because he had been telling us, oh my Lord, that this was all a pretext. He said this is pretextual, and that's because 20 years ago, because remember everything, the wheels started coming off the wagon with the housing collapse. And things got so bad in 2008. Remember, Goldman Sachs went to Nancy Pelosi and said, if you do not cough up $770 billion more dollars by the end of the day, we're shutting down the economy on Monday. Americans heard that and we went crazy. Remember that? We said, then shut it down. You don't need to give them another dime. And remember, the response that Congress had was to shut down the phone system. So now you can get so many, because remember that? And I remember my brother Jesse was in Congress at the time, and I remember him on the radio because President Obama, well, he was then Senator Obama, he was the nominee, he was running at that time, and the Congressional Black Caucus was prepared to vote not to give Goldman Sachs the money. President Obama said, look, I need to get through, please vote for this. And my brother was on the radio crying because he said, everything in me, I don't want to vote this way, but Senator Obama says he needs us and we've got to get this through. We don't want the economy to collapse. But he said, but this is an awful situation. Yeah, because these folks had like guns to our heads. And then the head of Goldman Sachs went on to become the Treasury Secretary. Remember that? That's what they always do. And I mean, and here we are. Because it is the same people it's the same players, or should I say it's the same corporations over and over again, even if they reformulate and get new names. And I'm trying to find out, how are we going to vote when we have got this, when you have this level and these layers of intimidation? Because like on paper, I mean, what is it? Rodney Ellis, the Harris County Commissioner in Texas, says, look, Texas is a blue state that don't vote. And I mean, you have a lot of people who are, I mean, Americans are just more fluid, I think, in terms of our voting. And I'm talking about, I'm thinking just whether you are a Republican, Democrat, or you are agnostic in terms of your party. I want you to be able to vote.
Mhm.
I can live with a loss. I'm not going to be happy with it, but I can live with it if it's a fair election. And a fair election means that people need to be able to get to the polls, period. If you're not an English speaker, or if you were like my great grandmother Tibby, she couldn't read or write, and you need someone to go into that booth with you, you ought to be able to do it.
Exactly.
And I'm going to have to get Greg Palast back on, because in this environment, now we have someone who's now tied to Homeland Security,
Mhm.
who is investigating the 2020 election and is using that as the basis upon which they're going to really limit our access to the vote
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
2026.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think we really understand how these people are plotting and planning
Yeah.
to shut everybody down.
Right.
So, I mean, so what are we supposed to do? I mean, because now, I mean, ICE, they're everywhere. Now they're all over Chicago. They are, but you know what? They're all over the country. They're
But
being deployed, and they're not talking about it.
and there's another layer that's there too, Santita, and I apologize, Terry, for talking over you. I just want to throw it out. There's another layer that's there as well, and I don't want people to miss it. We talk about ICE being at the polls. We talk about federal governments, federal agents being at the polls, police being at the polls. The Department of Justice also plans on being at the polls, and that's scary because you have Pam Bondi in the Department of Justice that's going to be at the polls trying to make determinations as to who gets the right to vote. That's scary. That's scary because that's an entity that's an extension of the entity, right? That's trying to suppress the vote across the country, and then they're going to be making those determinations. As it stands, it's if the case, some of the cases that before the Supreme Court goes through, they would be the only entity that would be able to bring a violation of the Voting Rights Act before the federal courts as well. It's a scary, scary situation because of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. The Supreme Court is about to rule that ordinary people who have had their voting rights suppressed illegally under the Voting Rights Act cannot sue to enforce their rights under the Voting Rights Act. Only the Department of Justice can do so. And in years past, the Department of Justice could be trusted to do the right thing, to analyze whether voting suppression was going on and to go after the suppressors, although they had even in the past, they have had extremely limited capacity to actually address all of the voting suppression that has been going on since the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. That was supposed to stop the voter suppression. Well, it did a lot, but not entirely. So Daryl's absolutely right. With Pam Bondi in charge of the Department of Justice, they are the last people that have any willingness to enforce the Voting Rights Act, which is simply a law that makes it illegal for states and municipalities or the federal government to stop people from voting on the basis of their race. And we know that in Tennessee, we know that the Black community is specifically targeted for voter suppression of all different types. The gerrymandering is racial. The refusing to allow formerly incarcerated people who have paid their debt to society, paid all of their fines, they've gone through the parole process. They cannot reinstate their voting rights because Tennessee simply makes it too difficult. The result is 21% of Black citizens in Tennessee are not allowed to vote because of this Rube Goldberg, how many jelly beans are in the jar system that they have for reinstating your voting rights after you've paid your debt to society. There was a point there.
But
that is really what we're looking at. And I think what we need to be looking to do, we can't trust the Supreme Court. John Roberts has never met a Black person that he thought should be voting, ever. I don't think he's ever seen it. I don't even think he thinks it's wise for Justice Thomas to be voting. But he hates the Voting Rights Act, has since he was a clerk for William Rehnquist on the Supreme Court, has done everything he can to systematically destroy the Voting Rights Act, and now he's about to, stomp it on.
Undo it, because that has been the hallmark of his career, right?
Yes, he's got that as a true agenda. We need a pro-democracy movement in this country, a pro-democracy movement that understands that the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, are not actually going to help us get to a pro-democracy. The Democrats, bless their hearts, as they say in Tennessee, are feckless. They are, they're just not able to do it. The latest example is, I believe it's a primary contender for the Senate in Maine, who is promoted as this big progressive guy. Turns out he's got Nazi tattoos. And if the Democrats can't do better, if the best thing the so-called progressive Democrats can come up with as yeah, that's his name. If they can't find somebody who understands class warfare that is going on in this country,
but
he's not a Nazi, then
Gary, that's what he's talking about. I mean, the thing is,
it's just
but I'm saying that's where we are.
That's where we are. And then we need a people's movement for pro-democracy that is a real democracy that actually includes all of us, and requires all of us to listen to one another and to be responsible for one another and to come into community with one another. But, I saw Senator Chris Murphy being interviewed the other day, and he was talking about, well, we need so much community that maybe we should have government supporting churches and faith organizations. And I'm like, it didn't work out that way so well in Germany. So let's don't walk down that road with tax dollars going to support churches. I control churches in my church, but not all. But religious trauma is real. Spiritual harm can happen, does happen in spiritual organizations, and you don't want your tax dollars. That's ridiculous. So I'm just saying there are Democrats who don't get it, and they're flailing around trying to figure out how they can win when what they really need to figure out is how they can serve.
And that's the key, because they're not as feckless. They're in it together. It's a bipartisan betrayal. And look, you're a Democratic Socialist now.
Yeah, but I think Democrats really like they're different from the Republicans.
No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is there are, and you have a lot of them who are very different. I'm a registered Democrat, but I also know that the beatdown that I take, that Jim Zogby takes, that, that Ariel Gold takes, shall I continue? That the progressives take, in the party, because you're not wanted there. I get it. I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying you need, as Reverend said, look, years ago, he said, no, I'm fighting to have a second party. Because we don't have that yet. And a third and a fourth, and however many people need. People have already looked. These young people, Terry, and Daryl, they've already gone down the street. They have left all of this behind. They have said to you, you're not working for me. I don't care what their labels are. They're talking about making public transportation affordable, because I cannot, these government workers that they're talking about, and is it a sick out? If you're not getting paid, you cannot get on the bus, the train, or get gas. I've seen white people on TV today looking like the air has been taken out of their bodies.
Yes.
And this man said, an older white gentleman, but you know what? He probably wasn't that old, but when you don't have money, that ages you. He said, I've got to choose between food and rent. And he said, so I guess I'm going to choose to pay my rent. So he's going to sit up in his home. It might be cold in there. Because we do know that many people, if he's renting, a lot of landlords don't treat working class and poor people well.
That's right.
Right? And if he owns a place, he's going to turn that heat off. This is a horror. That, and they saw this coming. The head of the what is it? The office that Tulsi Gabbard occupies now.
National Security Agency?
Absolutely. The head of that 20 years ago saw believed, and he said this publicly, that the financial collapse would give way to social chaos and disorder because people have nothing. They saw that this was 20 years ago, and I think they have been on a march to try and control this. I don't think that's going to work because Americans are a little different. I'm just hoping that we will be nonviolent and that people will register to vote, and and I think that we have to continue I mean, how are we supposed to walk around with ICE in this election season? I mean, how are you supposed to canvass neighborhoods?
Right.
I mean, how are you supposed to campaign with them around? I've got about 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, help me to understand how that's going to work.
Well, I don't think I really don't think there's going to be the big issue with the canvassing that goes on. We have canvassing. I right now in New Jersey, right, where we're preparing for the vote on Tuesday. And actually, we just left it's like 300 seniors that we were leading to the polls for early voting in the state of New Jersey. Let me just say this: those seniors that were on our John Lewis Make Good Trouble bus being taken to the early voting sites, they were singing freedom songs on the way to the polls in the bus. Okay. So I don't think that the intimidation factor necessarily is going to be that great with regards to people that are coming as a cluster when they're coming together. What they're counting on is that individually you will be intimidated, right? But collectively, right? If you go collectively as a group, I guess they say that fear is contagious, right? And so long as you're in fear, everybody will be in fear. I'm in fear. I'm in fear. But courage is also contagious.
Yes.
And what we know is that when we can encourage people, when we can encourage communities to go to the polls and vote, they will. And they will feel as though they're standing up to something and standing for something rather than hiding from something. And that's what this is all about, Santita. I think that during this 2025 election that's getting ready to occur this Tuesday, that's going to be part of that bellwether to determine whether or not people are going to come out and vote and how they're going to vote. Are they going to be afraid? I can tell you from the 200 seniors that we took today that there was no fear in them. There was no, if anything, it was a spark in them that said, I am more determined to go out now than if I ever. One lady we took to the poll was 94 years old, and she was on a walker. And she had to go because our bus was not, didn't have the handicap accessibility. She said, I'm getting on the bus, right? I'm going to cast my early ballot. I'm 94. I don't know if I'll be here Tuesday, but I'm going to vote today for that reason. That's what we're seeing, Santita. And I think that if that's the spirit that continues across this country, I don't know that ICE, I don't know that any other agency is going to be able to temper that. But that's the type of purpose, that's the type of intentionality we've got to have in standing up. You got to fight back when you're facing any type of autocracy or any type of dictatorship that's being thrown at you. They want you to be silent. Your silence, they'll grow with it. Your voice is that vote of saying, I won't be silent. So we've got to be certain we're out there doing it.
Absolutely.
I say that pro-democracy spirit that Daryl is describing, that is exactly the kind we need, like so much more of that. Transformative Justice Coalition is doing that work on the ground, making voting joyful and safe, and something that people can say, yes, I get to say how I vote, and I will go with my friends to go vote and make my voice heard. That's what we need all around the country. It really is. And it's not about who wins. It's about are we able to joyfully participate in a democratic process that really makes us who we are.
Well, because I'm not telling you who to vote for.
Right.
No, exactly. That's not where I am. I want you to be able to vote for whomever you choose. And let us work together after the vote has been resolved. Because there's something called the common good, everybody. The common good. And there are some things there's some truths that are self-evident. There are some goals that we should have as a society. You might disagree about how to get there, but everybody should be able to eat, food, clothing, shelter. There should be a floor beneath which no human being should fall. We can all agree on that. You can label it whatever you want. But my pastor used to tell me, and everybody Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, that I've never seen God make a mouth that God could not feed. There's more than enough in this world for everybody. And everyone should be able to partake. People are going to have, some people are going to have more, some people are going to have less, but nobody should have nothing. And if you don't believe that to be true, I hope it doesn't happen to you. Reverend Evans' wife, the first lady of my church, Mrs. Luther May Evans, these were some people, you know, they didn't go to Harvard or Yale, but they went to God. How about that? She said, you know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. People here are talking from a place of comfort. And maybe because my parents did tell me about the night that I was born and how my parents didn't have a place to live. They were living with the Halseys in Greensboro. And the first place that my parents, the first standalone home that they got was in a housing project in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Do I remember that? No, but that was my home because I was living with my parents. And the Lord has let me see life from a lot of different perspectives. And I thank God that because of the work that my parents were able to do, that I didn't know a hungry day. But I'm sensitive to people who do. My parents never, ever let us forget that they were almost put out of a hospital when my brother, Congressman Jackson, was dying. He had an infection that was eating his lung. And they told him, as the infection was eating his lung, it had eaten about a fourth of it. They said, there's nothing else we can do. You're going to have to leave. Jonathan was 11 months old. He was a couple of weeks, he was maybe a few days away from his first birthday. My father called Dr. King in desperation. He said, if they put us out, Doc, my baby's going to die. And my parents didn't have any money. They had no money. My father was a student at the University of Chicago. He was a student. We were living in a little apartment that had a little mouse running through it at night. Our dining room table was a door. And the sofa was a door my mother made into a door that my mother made into a sofa. And the coffee table was another door. And they used beads to separate the rooms. And I'm the eldest, so I remember that. And then, you know, things got better, but we never ever forgot. My father stood in a food line one Christmas when all of his money ran out. Their scholarship money ran out. He was waiting tables. My mother was working at the library. She put us to sleep. Pray that we would not get up because she was working late nights at the library because they were trying to make it. You have to think about people. And then there's some people who are brokenhearted. You say some folks don't want to work. Some people just are broken. When you feel that you can contribute, you do want to work. But when people have been broken and when they've been told that they are nothing and they are less than, that's what happens to them.
That's right.
The poor will always be among us. And I don't mean poor in money, the poor in spirit. And you need to have a heart for them too. So think about that. Think about that. And Solomon, correctional officer for the lockdown and everybody, however you vote, that is not my concern. I just want you to have access to it. And I hope that when you vote, you'll think about more than yourself. Because it's not just about you. It's about everybody around you. COVID showed us that. You can have health care, but guess what? If your neighbor doesn't have it and they've got COVID, duck, duck, goose, you got it too. Think about that. Think about it. If someone in the society cannot vote, that means your vote is imperiled also. Trust and believe. I love you, everybody. May God bless you real good, please. You know, and let's start asking some real questions because right now we need a universal single payer system. If they're going to shut the government down, when you open it, you don't want what we've had before. The number one driver of bankruptcies in America, it's still your healthcare costs. You are an illness or chronic disease away from being broke. The administrative costs that they're talking about, we're keeping a health insurance industry in business. We don't need them in business. Look at the VA system, look at the UK system, look at the Canadian system, see where the holes are, plug them up, wherever their faults are, correct them, and let's go. That's what we need.
Mhm.
Stop talking about who you want or who you don't want, and get what you need. Let's grow up in our politics. It's about to get real for everybody. Think about that. Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever you are, we're all Americans here, and everybody deserves the right to the tree of life. And those who are not Americans, who are ambitious to be Americans, remember that we are the only indigenous Americans are indigenous Americans, and we almost wiped them out.
That's right. Yeah.
Think about that. Attorney Terry O'Neill, President Emeritus of the National Organization of Women. Love you and thank you. Keep on fighting. Attorney Darrell Jones, Chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. He and Barbara Arnwine are on tour, getting people out to vote, and thank God for that. Of course, every Tuesday you can catch them on the radio on their own radio show. She also has her own website, Barbara Arnwine, ARNWINE.com. But go to WOLDC. That's where they have that show. It's worldwide, everybody. And if you want to really, really understand what we are dealing with and understand the legal challenges that we're facing and the legal challenges that need to be put in motion so that we can get our rights, please support this show. We need more shows like it. I'm Santita Jackson. May God bless you real good. Here I am off to the town hall meeting of Congressman Jonathan Jackson. I can't wait to hear what they've got to talk about tonight. So I got to get over there so I can try and get a seat.
Wonderful.
AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless you, everybody. Thank you all